Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know it's a loaded saying, but sometimes to know where we're going, we've got to know where we've been. And then, if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals, and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more, in a light and in a conversational fashion. And, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. And if you are, please keep listening and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, gives you a 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere, places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, Letterboxd, the TikTok, and probably a few other places that I've forgotten about at In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it that much more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that ultimate kindness, come on by and pay us a visit. On this episode, we're blasting all the way into the past, way back to 1999 with Breakfast of Champions, which has just been freshly restored with a fresh 4K scan, and is being re-released for a limited run in theaters starting, tomorrow, November 1st. It's going to be in select theaters all across the country, US and Canada. But specifically here in Toronto, I know it is playing down at the Review on November 5th. So please go check it out. It's one of those movies that, while sufficiently maligned back in the day, actually feels very salient and relevant now. It's hard to believe that a movie was ahead of its time, but yeah, this movie was ahead of its time. It's dark, it's funny, it really kind of fits to the ethos of today, whereas back in 99 it just felt overtly goofy and not believable. But I mean, in the past 20 years, to put it bluntly, the world has seen some shit, so we kind of buy what's going on in Breakfast of Champions, which makes it all that much more fun. In advance of the film's release, we had the chance to sit down and talk with the writer and director, the one and only Alan Rudolph, to talk about, the bumpy ride that Breakfast of Champions has been on, the ups and the downs and the misadventures, but now adventures of this unique story from not only Kurt Vonnegut Jr., but it was a fun talk. Alan definitely gave some stories, and also, we have some Canadian teams here to thank for this film getting remastered and re-released again in the first place, because while it is shout down in the States, it is our friends up here at Films We Like who spearheaded the whole thing. So just props to them for resurrecting this bent little gem, which if you had a chance to see it, like I said, it plays so much more better now than it did. Don't read the reviews. Go in blind. This is a dark, funny piece of satire that just plays to the moment really to a T, and I had so much fun with it. But Breakfast of the Champions, check your listings. Try to see it in the theater. I'm sure we'll be on VOD at some point, probably. But or maybe even on disc with our friends down at Shout in the States and up here. But first, enjoy our talk with Alan Rudolph, because between you and me, it is a darn good one. But I mean, just to kick this off, I mean, obviously, first off, I just want to say thank you so much for the time today, and just congratulations on the anniversary of Breakfast of Champions.
Well, it's probably the 50 some odd birthday for me of this project in my life. So thank you.
Well, I mean, I guess the first question is sort of
the 25th birthday, by the way, was not memorable.
Well, yes, but we'll get to that. But when did this sort of journey all start for you? Because I mean, obviously Vonnegut is unique, especially when it comes to sort of not just reading him, but adapting him to the screen at the same time.
This Crooked Path started for me, with Altman in early 70s, we had just finished Nashville. I'd been working with Bob since long goodbye. He knew I wanted to make a movie, knew I wanted to write, but at that time, except for him, it was, I guess, Roger Corman or nothing. Oh, wait, I don't have your audio.
Oh,
Oh, there you are.
oh,
Okay.
there, yeah, okay.
Sorry. And so he heard me on the set of Nashville talking with Richard Baskin, the musical composer. Richard had written a bunch of songs, and I said, oh, maybe I can try and figure out how to write a script for that. And Altman, who had alien ears, he could hear you talking in the next planet, wandered over one day during Nashville. I was an assistant director. I'd never worked that hard in my life before or since, I think. And it was a sandwich in one hand. And he says, hey, you want to make a little film, I've been told. I said, well, yeah. He said, well, we'll get it made, but it's going to take 3 years. I need you to do things, write some things first. And I didn't even know how I knew I wanted to write. I hadn't written anything. And I probably told him. And after we finished Nashville, one day in his office, he said, I want to talk to you. And he said, have you read Breakfast of Champions, which I think had come out a year or two before. And someone must have brought it to him because Bob didn't option anything. And I said, no, I haven't. And he said, well, I got a couple of writers who've tried to crack it. There's 2 writers working together now and they can't crack it. I need a script in a hurry or I'm just going to have to let it go. So he said, read it and see what you can do with it. So I read it, and reading Breakfast of Champions in the early 70s was like rock and roll or LSD. There was life before Breakfast of Champions and life after Breakfast of Champions. It's hilarious. It's mordant. It absolutely gelled and confirmed my feelings about America and the American success syndrome, the American political syndrome, the American war syndrome, the America skirt the truth syndrome. And I thought it was, essential then in my being somehow. And he said, well, write a script. And I said, well, even as a green kid with long hair, I said, Vonnegut is a part of this. I mean, he's a character in it. He himself, he's the author. He plays a part in it. His alter ego is in it. His surrogate is in it. His alias is in it. I mean, this has to be a biography of him. And he said, I'm not going to do that. I said, I know you're not. So I said, I think the only way to go about it is to focus on the characters and try and make it a story out of it using all of his elements. And he said, yeah, do that. So that's what I did. And the way Bob worked, he'd always say, even before he had a script, even if he knew it was an idea he wanted to make, he'd always say, who do we get in it? Who should we cast? Who am I going to put in this? That's the way he wrote. I mean, he casting was 90% to him. He's the one who started that phrase, and I think he may have underestimated. I don't know, but he said, so while I was writing, he said, who do you see in it? Me. I said, Johnny Carson as Dwayne Hoover. And he goes, ooh, that's a good idea. And Carson, I think, was famous for never being in movies after maybe he started. I don't know. But Nashville had come out. So Bob had a lot of noise after MASH and Nashville. And Carson flirted with it for a while, but not long. And then he passed. And then we got Peter Falk actually wanted to play Dwayne Hoover. And they couldn't get it together. And Bob moved on to another thing. He said, I want you to write a screenplay for Buffalo Bill and the Indians based on Arthur Kopit's play. And the Breakfast never got made. And yet it was inside of me like some kind of friendly virus. And then I started making my own films for free. But when I got paid on some studio things I did to actually pay the rent. I bought the option to breakfast. It wasn't cheap, and it was always sort of available every 2 or 3 years because famous filmmakers were buying it. And I think they wore it like a trinket, like a Confederacy of Dunces, movies they'd never thought they'd ever make or something, but they kind of liked being associated with it. So I wanted to make it, and Altman wasn't interested in it anymore. And then I lost the option. I'd work with Bruce Willis and Demi Moore in a little thriller or whatever that's called Mortal Thoughts, but a low budget movie with big stars in 1991. And I know Bruce at the time was very public. He said, "This is my favorite experience and my favorite role I've played," because he was so good at it, and being a Hollywood superstar, he didn't get chances to really explore characters in a freewheeling set where you can actually do your art.
Sure.
And so out of the blue, in the late 90s, 97, I believe, he called me up. And I had no contact with him after Mortal Thoughts. About a year after that, I had no contact with him. And he called me up and he said, "I want to make a comedy. I need a comedy in my life right now for a variety of reasons. I want to make Breakfast of Champions. Let's go." Now, you don't get those calls. I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, let's go." When? In 100 years? I mean, who's going to finance this? He said, "You let me worry about that. We can't spend any money. No, it's got to be as tight as we can make it. And I have to go soon, right now, almost." A few months later, we were shooting and no interference. He said, "Who will we get for this?" And I said, "Well, I think we should go after the best actors." And I said, "We should start with Kilgore." He says, "Yeah, but who?" I said, "What about Albert Finney?" Whom I didn't know, and he didn't know. He said, "Oh, wow. You think we could get him?" I said, "I don't know." So we sent it to him. And Albert was famous at the time for turning everything down, unless you paid him a lot. And we didn't have a lot, but he read it, liked it. I flew to London, met him. 3 bottles later, he said, "Yeah." And that was one of the great privileges in my life to work with him. Every cast member was first choice. I'd sent the script to Nolte before Bruce had called. Right after Nick and I and Julie Christie, we did Afterglow for Altman in 96 or 7. And I sent him, it was the last year I had the option for Breakfast of Champions. I sent him the script and he never answered, never responded. So I figured he didn't read it, didn't like it, didn't want to do it, whatever. So then when I started with Bruce and Bruce was going to make it, I sent it to Nick again, only for Harry LeSabre, the cross-dressing sales manager. And he calls me up and he knew it was going to be made. I told him Bruce Willis his company was going to make it and he was going to start it. And Nick says, "Well, how come you didn't send me Dwayne Hoover?" And I said, "Well, I did, and you didn't read it, or you didn't respond." And he said, "Oh, you're supposed to come after me." I said, "Well, I am now." And he jumped in and I said, "Doesn't matter, Nick. You're going to steal the movie in that role anyway. So what difference does it make?" And the actors were great. The picture was made. Then it was like sitting there like a radioactive 3-headed dog or something, and nobody wanted to go near it. No one wanted to touch it. No one wanted to admit it was made. It came and went in about a day. I got both barrels point blank from every critic in America. And my friend, the great novelist, Tom Robbins, has a little cameo in the movie. And I told Tom, I said, "This is a career killer." He said, "Well, you don't have to worry about that." He says, "You don't have a career, you have a careen." And this is really interesting, maybe not. The last 2-3 days, the first interviews I've ever done about Breakfast of Champions. When it came out, nobody talked to me. Nobody wanted to, there was no press, no screening, nothing. And the few times it's come up, I don't do many interviews anymore. I haven't done much of anything except paint. And when it does come up, people are very timid. They don't know if they should mention this, like some terminal disease or something. And when it comes up, I say, "Oh, you mean the most maligned film in reviled film in modern American cinema, and my single greatest, proudest achievement." I'm proud of this movie. And then a couple years ago, maybe last year only, you couldn't find it anywhere. It's never streamed.
Right. Yeah.
It's never revived. It's been in some landfill somewhere. And the only copy I had of it was a DVD that was made by Hollywood Pictures. Don't be redundant. And I bought it at Warehouse Records the day they closed in the 99-cent bin. And you put the DVD in your machine. I thought, well, geez, I haven't seen this movie in, at the time it was probably 10 years. And I said, I'm going to watch it. And say, somebody took a snapshot. Here's the writer-director sitting in his living room watching his own movie on TV by himself, So I put it in, and the first 20 minutes were trailers for other dumped Hollywood movies with big names in it that you couldn't fast forward past. So there's a Liam Neeson movie, there's an Antonio Banderas movie, there's a Sandra Bullock movie, and they were obviously all the movies they wanted to dump, and it was like the preamble to watching Breakfast. And the format was wrong, the color was shitty, and I sat there and I thought, I don't know if I'll be able to take this. And I laughed my ass off all the way through the movie. I just thought it was great. And I thought, okay, that was my Pyrrhic victory. I walked off the end of the pier, but I still felt good about the film. Then last year, Ron Mann, a documentary filmmaker in Canada, and a great documentary filmmaker, I guess he has a company called Films We Like, and he distributes films he likes in Canada, mostly documentaries. And he contacted David Blocker, who produced the film, and he said, how can we get the rights to this? I'd like to include this in my catalog. And David got to work. He contacted Bruce's people. I say Bruce and I get a little sad, Bruce is going through a new phase. And he secured the rights for Ron, got Shout Factory to sign on, and they're going to release a DVD and stream it next year, I think. And someone came up with enough money that we made a new 4K out of this. And Elliot Davis, the cinematographer, timed it, and I sat in my room watching it on the computer a reel at a time. I still haven't seen it on a wide screen, even my TV, because I don't know how to hook up the computer to the screen. So I've seen it a reel at a time. But it looks beautiful. And this will be the truth. I mean, I haven't lied to you yet, but this will be the truth. If you said, okay, this film has been in your life for 50 years, career considerations, pocketbook considerations, emotional health considerations aside, if you could pick any time in the last 50 years to release the film, when would you do it? And I would probably say, if you ask that question today, exactly when it's going to be showing at this Alamo Draft House in New York, which is 3 days before the American presidential election. Because at the time, I thought everybody wanted a peek under the tent. I thought we all got the joke that, life was cushy, but we were being deceived.
Yeah.
And there was no internet. There was no social media when the film came out or made. And to me, the tip of the poison spear has always been advertising. I mean, advertising has made a refined art. I won't denigrate art. Has made a refined business out of doing everything but tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So, and what it does to us as individuals, and we all fall for it sometime in our lives, is it takes the most fragile, important, vital thing you have as a person, your own identity, and it just removes it and replaces it with their version of your identity,
Yeah.
which you don't have to work at, and it's salty and sweet and sexy and shiny and buy this. And then when you're of no use to them, when they're selling you Depends or something, they move on to the next mark, younger, and they do the same thing. So people today, I mean, advertising probably doesn't have its impact any as much as it did, but it's always going to be the strongest drug in culture.
For sure.
But and I thought, well, that's going to be the premise from what I do this film. I met Vonnegut in the 70s when Altman's only instructions to me were don't follow the book. Whatever you do, don't follow the book. And I can just hear him saying it now. The same way when he came up to me on Nashville and said, well, you'll get a movie made. And when I put together Welcome to LA, and he said right before shooting, he said, I don't care what you make, don't make a car chase movie. That was the only thing he said about my first film with him producing. But I flew to New York as a young man and just turned 30, 31, and met Kurt Vonnegut in New York to talk about his book and me writing the screenplay. And he didn't want to talk about me writing the screenplay. He just said, the novel's one thing, a book is one thing, and the movie is something entirely different. And don't try and make the same thing. Use the book as your inspiration or whatever to do whatever you think the movie needs. So I had these two titans of American culture telling me, don't follow the book. And then when the movie comes out, I only read one review, and I don't think I needed to read more than that. It was probably the worst review anybody has ever received. But the guy's complaining that I didn't follow the tone of the book. I didn't follow the book, and the book was impossible to translate. Why try it? So those two things can be true, but not together. And I thought people would. I thought the whole joke was to see things you've never seen before.
Yeah.
But even by the late 90s, they weren't yet. And I'd been tagged from the beginning. I had to look it up the first time it was used. Well, this quirky director from the first film I ever made. Then and they used it every film I made. So I started wearing it and then that got tired. Oh, his films aren't real. Oh, where do they take place? Oh, people don't talk like that. Oh, where's the traditional plot? Oh, I don't understand how characters can behave this way. What's the time frame of that? Where blah blah blah. And now I haven't tried, and I won't. But now, if you make a film, you could probably only get it made if it's weird, if it's different. So maybe somewhere in this cross.
You were 25 years too early, my friend. That's basically what it is.
I've always gone the opposite way of freeway traffic, and there's always tumbleweeds in the lobby of wherever my movie's playing. So I haven't got 25 years left to find out.
Well, you're not going to have to on this one, Alan. I think audiences are going to be ready for this one. It is absolutely gonzo, and I mean, I can't wait for more and more people to see it. And I'm so happy that Ron was the one spearheading it. I did not know that.
Oh, Ron is
so that's fantastic.
He is a hero, and I mean, I don't know why. And it's the first film I think he's releasing in America, and I didn't know he even had the muscle and the power or the money to do it. But he's a real. I don't know him well. I met him. We used to bump into each other at film festivals, and I'm a couple of times over the years. But he's on my Mount Rushmore, that's for sure.
He's a lovely guy. He hates journalists like me, but he's doing the right work and helping to preserve films like this. But again, Alan, just thank you so much for the time today, and congrats on the rebirth of Breakfast of Champions.
Well, thanks. Call me the day after, and we'll see.
You got it. And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.